Hello and welcome to my first ever YouTube video. All comments, feedback and so on gratefully received. I'd love to know how you think I can improve and what you'd like to see in the future videos. My plan at the moment is to make videos about performance, settings, internet speed, that sort of thing, because that was what I was interested in before I got the sim. So the reason I went ahead and bought it was because there was a Steam sale. Prior to that, I was kind of worried about whether I would even be able to run it with my PC and my internet. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So we're going to be flying from San Francisco International over to San Rafael, a little bit to the north. So let's get in the air. So, as I said, prior to purchasing the sim, I was doing some research, or trying to do some research on whether a slower machine with a poorer or a slower internet connection would be capable of running the sim, or whether the sim would be enjoyable or playable even. And I couldn't really get much information really. Lots of people saying you need 100 megabits per second, 200 megabits per second maybe. You know, lots of people with 4090s making YouTube videos. You know, none of which was helpful to me really with my, at the time, 15 megabits per second. But I got the sim because it was on offer, you know, Steam sale, and also they updated it and changed things so that you can download and install scenery and aircraft. So for that reason I decided to go ahead and get the sim. But if you can download and install aircraft, you don't necessarily need the fastest internet connection in the world, right? That was my thinking. And it did sort of prove to be so. So yeah, on my internet connection, 15 megabits per second then. The biggest problem I had was loading into the flight. So loading the sim the first time didn't take super long. It's like 5 minutes or something. And then loading into the first flight, that was more like 10 minutes, which is a bit too long, isn't it? What was good that after that initial load, you know, it has to load the aircraft obviously, or stream the aircraft from the servers to your machine, but then it saves it in the cache. So once it's in the cache, it loads up pretty quickly, and then after that I was able to load into flights in that same area with that same aircraft in about 5 minutes or so. That's perfectly acceptable, isn't it? And it looks amazing. I mean, the graphics, and I mean, okay, they're very similar to 2020, right? But the lighting effects and things are way better. The night lights, to my eye, are much more convincing. So when you're flying over a city, rather than looking like you know, little pixels, little white and orange pixels, the lights were sort of glowing more, looking much more convincing. I was pretty happy, to be honest, with that. Now, to improve my internet speed by installing an aerial, I'm in the middle of nowhere here in the UK, so I'm using 4G LTE. It's my only option, other than Starlink. The Starlink isn't really an option for me either, because I am surrounded by trees here. Starlink needs line of sight, doesn't it? So having installed the aerial, then I got internet speed of more like 25 megabits per second, which is what we're looking at now. That was a lot better. So, you know, loading into flights and things. The first time it still takes a while, right? Because it's still got to stream a lot of data, but it was a lot better. And once it had that data, things were pretty quick. So we can see the city of San Francisco down below. Very windy. I don't find the turbulence that realistic personally. I'd be interested in your comments on that. It's very violent, isn't it, the turbulence? Seems like it to me. Maybe we'll head over that way towards the larger buildings. Yeah, very extreme turbulence. When I'm trying to land, I haven't had the sim for long, so I haven't had much practice. Maybe I need practice. Maybe you can give me some tips. But as I was approaching, I was getting slammed into the ground. All sorts of things. Maybe maybe they're trying to cater to glider pilots by making the thermals more effective. I'm not sure, but it seems very violent. I mean, having landed light aircraft in real life, it has never been like that. It's yeah, okay, you get some buffeting and so on, but it's not going to throw your aircraft around the sky as you're trying to approach the airport or the runway. But
500.
I changed it to the medium setting, and that to, well, it's not aggressive enough, is it? On medium, you don't really get any sense of turbulence at all. It's incredibly mild. It's more like turning the turbulence off than toning it down. So I'm flying on, in inverted commas, realistic turbulence level at the moment. I think the scenery is looking okay though, right? The buildings are pretty convincing. Sometimes I get a little bit of pop-up. I don't know if that's related to internet speed or a graphical setting. I fly with currently LOD or terrain LOD of 200. I'm not actually seeing any pop in at the moment, really. That's looking quite good, isn't it? Yeah, default when I first loaded into the sim, it set it up with terrain LOD 100, but I mean I was getting 100 FPS and that's sort of not necessary, is it? So I cranked up the graphics a bit more. Now you can see, 70 FPS, that's pretty good. So we should talk about the PC perhaps. So I've got this PC I built in 2018, and at the time it was pretty good. The CPU was one of the better ones you could get at the time, but it's not capable of hyper-threading, which I think is quite important for FS24, isn't it? The GPU is a sort of second-hand one I picked up off of eBay. It's not a bad one, 12 gigabytes VRAM, and having a decent amount of VRAM I think is important. When I was checking the sort of admin mode where it shows you a bunch of stuff, using about 8-9 gigabytes of VRAM, so you do want a decent amount ideally, if you don't want to have to start turning settings down. RAM, I've got about 32 gigabytes, so quite a lot of RAM, but it's not like gaming RAM or anything. It's just your bog standard normal RAM, and the game is on a 500 gigabyte SSD in one of the M2 jobbies that screws into the M2 slot. So not the best PC really, not the worst, but not the best. But I think we can say it does look pretty good and performs pretty well, in my opinion. Let me know what you think. Yeah, so going back to that turbulence then, I've had many unsuccessful landing attempts. So there's no guarantee that I'm going to get this down on the ground today. So you could have a bit of a chuckle watching me go splat into the tarmac. Not too far to the runway from here. It is just over the hills over there. I'm a bit low, aren't I, for this area? Oh, there's some significant ground effect pushing me up there, though. Yeah, so I was saying earlier, wasn't I? If you can give me some ideas about future videos, the next one I do probably is going to be about increased internet speed, because I'm going to be upgrading the Wi-Fi card in the PC, which should get me up to around 50 megabits per second. So we'll do a video about how it looks with double the internet speed. Maybe it will look the same. Yeah, you can see there that that's gonna pop in a bit slowly, isn't it? Because we've never looked at that bit of scenery before. So that's, if you haven't loaded in, you know, if you haven't flown over an area before, kind of what it looks like if you come out of the aircraft and look at a bit that it hasn't loaded, if that makes sense. You're going to get a bit of that. So the second time you fly over that area, probably it will be loaded into the cache, so you won't see that. But that's a limitation of the slower internet speed that you need to consider. And we'll see how is it with 50 megabits per second in the future. Another video I want to make is going to be about landing a sort of tail dragger aircraft. They are quite tricky in this sim. Seems a lot harder than FS 2020 in my opinion. So I'll be going over that. There's a little airfield near where I live in Bath in the UK, very pretty part of the world. I'll be landing there. You can rate my landings, give me advice, or maybe pick up some tips if you find the tail draggers a bit tricky as well. But I think it's a beautiful sim, isn't it? It looks even better in HDR, but I'm not recording in HDR. I'm not flying in HDR either right now, because I want to keep things as simple as possible for this first YouTube video. The speed of the video that I'm recording is set to 60 frames per second, so it won't look quite as smooth as what I'm seeing. So I'm seeing, you can see the numbers at the top left there, hopefully. 70 FPS approximately is what I'm seeing, but you'll of course only be seeing 60. And I'm flying in 4K but recording in 1440p. I toned things down because I want a fairly quick upload, and also the audio wasn't great with when I had it set to 120 FPS. It did cut out quite a lot, and I'm assuming that's a limitation of the CPU. Like, I guess maybe it can't record and generate all the information required for the visuals and so on for the sim. at the same time, so I was losing audio and so on. But it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? So, our destination just over this hill here. We'll go around to the left, follow that little road there, and then swing round to the right and attempt to put it down. I think we'll pull the seat up a little bit. Yeah, I was blown away, to be honest, flying the sim when I was, one of the first flights I did was from Innsbruck to Salzburg, and coming into land there was, the sun was setting and it was raining, and
500.
Just so beautiful seeing the sun setting through the rain, the rain effects on the windshield and so on. It's just such an awesome looking sim. Airport's right there, so that's where we're going to be putting it down, or attempting to. Bit of a hill here on the run in, which makes it a bit fiddly. So we'll just clear this hill and then run down into the valley. There we go. Just going to concentrate on the landing here rather than chatting and getting us all killed.
Stop.
Okay, we're down. Quite a hard bump, wasn't it? Not the best, but okay, any landing that you can walk away from is what they say, isn't it? So we'll roll down to the end and then spin it round and find a parking spot. So, conclusion then, is it worth buying? I would say, well, I think you probably already know what I'm going to say. I'd say, yeah, if you got 10 megabits per second, 15 megabits per second, maybe I can't recommend it. I mean, I did use it with 15 megabits per second and I did enjoy it, so that's something to consider. As I said, I flew around London and it looked amazing, flying in the evening, late at night. Like I say, first time photogrammetry scenery looks all horrible and melted, but next time, once that's all loaded into your SSD, you're okay. And then 25 megabits per second, you're fine, aren't you, really? And in terms of the PC, like I said, it's an old piece. There's an old CPU relatively that I've got here. It's 7 years old or something now. But it's running fine. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. In the future as well, I'll be upgrading to a CPU with hyper-threading, so I'll do another video there to show you the difference between those, if you're interested. yeah, once you got 25 megabits per second or more, that's okay. I mean, yeah, it's going to be better if you've got 200 for sure, but you don't need 200. You can get away with what I've got here, as you can see. My opinions on the sim are that it is just fantastic. It looks amazing. Yeah, just get it. And yeah, please do let me know what sort of videos you'd like to see in the future and how I can improve. Any advice, tips on flying and so on would be great. I'm just going to park it right here, I think. And I'll say goodbye now. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you on the next one.